As a single dad desperately trying to rebuild his life for his 6-year-old daughter, Daniel finally received the job interview that could change their future forever. But on his way there, he found a young woman stranded beside a broken car on a lonely road, frightened and completely alone. Helping her meant losing his only chance at a stable life. Walking away meant leaving her in danger. Daniel chose kindness and missed the interview. What he didn't know was who she truly was, and how this small act of compassion would turn his entire world upside down. Daniel woke before dawn, though he hadn't really slept. He'd been staring at the ceiling for hours, running through answers to questions he'd memorized from engineering interview prep sites. His daughter Lily was still asleep in the next room, her small breaths barely audible through the thin apartment walls. He stood in the bathroom, adjusting his tie for the 5th time. It was an old tie, one he'd worn to his last real job interview 3 years ago, back when his wife was still alive, back when he still believed things would work out if he just tried hard enough. The suit didn't fit quite right anymore. He'd lost weight, not the good kind, the kind that came from skipping meals so Lily could have seconds. His phone buzzed on the counter. He knew who it was before he looked. "Daniel, are you up?" His mother's voice was sharp even through the speaker. "You can't be late today. You understand that, don't you?" Daniel held the phone away from his ear and took a breath. "I'm up, Mom. I've been up." "Good. Because this is your chance. Your only chance. Lily needs stability. She needs a father who can provide." "I know." "Then don't mess it up." There was a beat of silence. "Your father would have made sure he was ready a week ago." The line went dead. Daniel walked into Lily's room and knelt beside her bed. She was curled under a thin blanket, clutching a stuffed rabbit with one ear missing. "Hey, sweetheart, time to wake up." Lily stirred, blinking up at him with sleepy eyes. "Is it school day?" "Yeah, kiddo, but Mrs. Patterson's going to pick you up today, remember? I've got something important." Lily sat up suddenly. "The job thing." Daniel smiled. "The job thing." She threw her arms around his neck. "You're gonna get it, Daddy. I know you are." He held her for a moment longer than necessary. "I hope so, Lil. I really do." An hour later, Daniel was on the road. The interview was at 10. It was 8:15. Harmon Engineering was 40 minutes away if traffic cooperated. He'd mapped out 3 different routes the night before. Everything was planned. Everything was under control. Then the highway stopped moving. Daniel watched the line of brake lights stretch ahead of him and felt his chest tighten. He checked his phone. 8:32. He could still make it. But the cars didn't move. 5 minutes. 10. 15. At 8:50, Daniel pulled onto the shoulder and took the next exit. He knew a back road that cut through the industrial district. It would shave off at least 10 minutes. He turned onto the narrow road, accelerating past warehouses and chain-link fences. The road was empty, no traffic, no delays. He was going to make it. Then he saw the car. It was a sleek black sedan. Pulled halfway onto the gravel shoulder, hazard lights blinking. The hood was up. And standing beside it, arms wrapped around herself, was a young woman in a business dress and heels, looking completely out of place on this forgotten stretch of road. Daniel's foot hovered over the gas pedal. He should keep driving. There was no time. This was his one shot. If he stopped, he'd be late. If he was late, he'd lose everything. But the woman looked scared. Daniel slowed the car. He pulled over and stepped out. The woman turned toward him, startled. Her eyes were red, like she'd been crying. "Hey," Daniel called, keeping his distance. "You okay?" She looked at him like she wasn't sure whether to trust him. "My car died. I don't know what happened. It just stopped." Daniel glanced at the sedan. "Expensive. Did you call someone?" "My phone's dead. I've been here for 20 minutes and no one stopped." Daniel checked his watch. 8:58. He had an hour and 2 minutes. "Do you know anything about cars?" she asked. Daniel walked over and looked under the hood. It took him less than a minute to spot the problem. "Your battery cable came loose. It's an easy fix." Her face flooded with relief. "Can you fix it?" Daniel did the math. 5 minutes to reconnect the cable, maybe 10 if he was careful. That left him 40 minutes. It would be tight, but he could still make it. "Yeah," Daniel said. "I can fix it." He grabbed a toolbox from his trunk. His hands worked quickly, tightening the cable back into place, checking the connections. The woman stood nearby, watching him with gratitude. "You're a lifesaver," she said. Daniel wiped his hands on an old rag. "Try starting it now." She slid into the driver's seat and turned the key. The engine roared to life. She stepped back out, smiling for the first time. "Thank you. Really. Can I give you a ride somewhere?" Daniel shook his head. "I'm good. I've got my car." "Are you sure? Where are you headed?" "Job interview." Her expression shifted. "When?" 10 o'clock. She looked at her watch, then back at him. "You should go. Right now." "I will." Daniel closed her hood and stepped back. "Drive safe." She hesitated, like she wanted to say something else, but Daniel was already getting back into his car. He had 37 minutes. He made it to Harmon Engineering at 10:23. The receptionist looked up when he walked in, flushed and out of breath. "Name?" "Daniel Foster. I had an interview at 10. She glanced at her computer screen. "Mr. Beadle, Harrison doesn't see candidates who arrive late. Company policy." Daniel felt the floor drop out. "I was helping someone. There was an emergency. I'm sorry. There's nothing I can do." Daniel stood there, staring at the polished marble floors, at the glass walls that separated him from the life he'd been so close to grabbing. He wanted to argue. He wanted to beg. But he knew it wouldn't matter. He turned and walked out. In the parking lot, he sat in his car and stared at nothing. His phone buzzed. He didn't need to look to know it was his mother. He answered. "Well?" she said. Daniel closed his eyes. "I didn't get it." There was a long silence. Then his mother's voice came through, low and cold. "What happened?" "I was late." "Late? Daniel, how could you be late?" "This was the most important day of your life." "I know." "Then what happened?" Daniel's jaw tightened. "I stopped to help someone." His mother's tone sharpened. "You stopped? Daniel, do you understand what you just threw away? Do you understand what this means for Lily?" "I know what it means." "You have to do better. You have to be stronger. Lily needs a father she can depend on." "I have to go," Daniel said quietly. "Don't hang up on me." Daniel ended the call. He sat there in silence, the weight of everything pressing down on him. The missed interview, his mother's voice echoing in his head, and underneath it all, the image of that woman standing by the side of the road, scared and alone. He'd made a choice, and now he was paying for it. 3 days later, Daniel was standing on a construction site in steel-toed boots and a hard hat, hauling cinder blocks in the August heat. It wasn't the career he'd trained for, wasn't the future he'd imagined, but it was a paycheck. His supervisor, a grizzled man named Ray, walked over and handed him a water bottle. "You doing all right, Foster?" Daniel nodded. "Yeah, I'm good." Ray studied him. "You don't look like a construction guy." "I'm not. But I need the work." Ray grunted. "Fair enough. Just keep your head down. You'll do fine." That night, he picked Lily up from Mrs. Patterson's house and made her dinner. Spaghetti with butter. It was all they had left until payday. Lily looked up at him. "Did you get the job, Daddy?" Daniel forced a smile. "Not that one, kiddo. But I got a different one. We're going to be okay." Lily nodded, satisfied. Later, after Lily was asleep, Daniel sat on the couch and stared at his phone. His mother had called twice more. He hadn't answered. He thought about the woman on the side of the road. He wondered if she even remembered him. He didn't regret stopping, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just traded his future for a stranger's convenience, and now he had to live with that. The construction site became Daniel's new reality. Every morning at 6, he'd drop Lily off at school and spend the next 10 hours moving materials, mixing concrete, or climbing scaffolding in weather that swung between blistering heat and sudden downpours. His body adapted faster than his mind. The blisters on his hands hardened into calluses. But every time he swung a hammer or hauled rebar, a small voice reminded him that he'd spent 4 years in college, so he wouldn't have to do this. He ignored the voice. He didn't have the luxury of self-pity. 2 weeks into the job, his mother called again. Daniel was sitting in his truck during lunch break, eating a sandwich made from the last of the bread and some deli meat that was a day past the sell-by date. He saw her name on the screen and almost didn't answer. But he did. "Hi, Mom." "Daniel." Her voice was clipped. "I've been trying to reach you." "I've been working." "Doing what, exactly?" Daniel took a bite of his sandwich and chewed slowly. "Construction." There was a long silence. Then his mother said, "Construction." "Yeah. You have an engineering degree, Daniel. You're working construction. It pays the bills." "Barely, I'm sure." His mother's tone sharpened. "Is this what you want Lily to see? Her father throwing his education away to do manual labor?" Daniel kept his voice level. "It's honest work, Mom. Your father was an engineer, a real engineer. He provided for his family. He didn't settle because he couldn't be bothered to try harder. I'm doing my best. Your best isn't good enough. It hasn't been good enough for a long time." The line went dead. That night, Lily asked him why he looked so tired. They were sitting at the small kitchen table, and she was drawing while Daniel paid bills on his laptop. The numbers didn't add up. They never did. "Just a long day, sweetheart," Daniel said. Lily looked up at him with those big, serious eyes that reminded him so much of her mother. "Grandma says you work too hard." Daniel's fingers stopped moving. "When did Grandma say that?" "She called me yesterday, on Mrs. Patterson's phone." Daniel felt a spike of irritation but didn't show it. Instead, he smiled. "Grandma worries too much." Lily went back to her drawing. "She said you used to be really smart, like with math and science and stuff." Daniel reached over and ruffled her hair. "I'm still pretty smart, kiddo." "Then why aren't you doing smart people work?" The question landed like a punch. "Sometimes smart people do all kinds of work. What matters is taking care of the people you love." Lily seemed satisfied with that. 3 weeks later, Ray told Daniel they were moving to a new site, a big one, corporate offices downtown, the kind of project that had investors and architects walking around in expensive suits. Daniel didn't care. It was just another job. But when he arrived at the site on Monday morning, something felt different. The place was massive. 20 floors, all glass and steel. There were security guards at the entrance. Cameras everywhere. And parked near the main trailer was a line of black SUVs with tinted windows. Ray spotted Daniel and waved him over. "Big day today, Foster. We've got the executives coming through. Try not to look like a slob." Daniel glanced down at his dusty jeans and work boots. "I'll do my best," Ray laughed. "Just keep your head down and stay out of their way." Around mid-morning, the SUVs pulled up. Daniel was on the 3rd floor, helping unload drywall from a freight elevator, when he heard the commotion below. Voices. The click of heels on concrete. He didn't pay attention. He had 6 more sheets of drywall to move. Then Ray's voice crackled over the radio. "All crew, heads up. Executive team is on site. Stay professional." Daniel kept working. 10 minutes later, the elevator doors opened, and a group of people stepped out. 4 men in tailored suits, and 1 woman. She was younger than the others, mid-30s maybe, dark hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. a charcoal blazer over a white blouse. Daniel glanced at her for half a second, then went back to the drywall. But she was looking at him. He felt it before he saw it. He turned, and their eyes met. And then he recognized her. It was the woman from the side of the road. Daniel froze. She was staring at him too, her expression shifting from professional detachment to shock. Then she stepped forward. "Excuse me," she said, her voice cutting through the noise. The crew around Daniel stopped working. Ray turned to see what was happening. The woman walked straight up to Daniel. "You're the man who helped me." Daniel set the drywall down carefully. "Yeah, I remember." She didn't smile, but her expression softened. "I never got your name." "Daniel Foster." "Victoria Hayes." She extended her hand, and Daniel shook it. Her grip was firm. "I owe you an apology." Daniel blinked. "For what?" "You told me you had a job interview. I didn't realize how important it was. And because of me, you missed it." Daniel felt the weight of every eye on the floor. "It's fine. You needed help." Victoria shook her head. "It's not fine. I've been thinking about it ever since that day. You sacrificed something important to help a complete stranger." Victoria turned to one of the men beside her. "I need to speak with Mr. Foster privately." The man frowned. "Ms. Hayes, we're on a schedule." "I'll catch up." Her tone left no room for argument. The executives exchanged glances, then moved toward the elevator. Ray followed them. When they were alone, Victoria turned back to Daniel. "Tell me what happened. After you helped me, did you make it to the interview?" Daniel hesitated. "I was 23 minutes late. They wouldn't see me." Victoria's jaw tightened. "What company?" "Harmon Engineering." She nodded slowly. "And now you're working here." "I needed a job. This was available. Do you have a family?" "A daughter. She's 6. Victoria looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, "I'm the CEO of this company, Hayes Construction Group. This building you're working on? It's ours." Daniel didn't know what to say. "I want to help you," Victoria continued. "The way you helped me." Daniel shook his head. "You don't owe me anything." "Maybe not. But I want to do it anyway." She reached into her blazer and pulled out a business card. "Come to my office tomorrow. 9 o'clock. Daniel took the card. It was heavy, embossed. "What for?" he asked. Victoria smiled. "To give you a second chance." Then she turned and walked back to the elevator. Ray came back minutes later, grinning. "What the hell was that about?" Daniel slipped the card into his pocket. "I have no idea." That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He kept turning the business card over in his hands, reading the name. Victoria Hayes, CEO. The next morning, Daniel drove downtown. Hayes Construction Group's headquarters was a 15-story building with floor-to-ceiling windows and a lobby that looked like something out of a magazine. He felt out of place the moment he walked in. The receptionist looked up. "Can I help you?" "Daniel Foster. I'm here to see Ms. Hayes." The receptionist checked her computer, then nodded. "She's expecting you." 15th floor. Daniel took the elevator up, his heart pounding. When the doors opened, he stepped into a sleek hallway with polished wood floors and modern art on the walls. A young woman greeted him. "Mr. Foster? Follow me, please." She led him to a corner office with a view that stretched across the entire city. Victoria was standing by the window. She turned when he entered. "Daniel, thank you for coming." He stepped inside. "I wasn't sure if you were serious." Victoria gestured to a chair. "Sit. Please." Daniel sat. Victoria took the seat across from him, not behind her desk. "I want to hear your story," she said. "All of it." So he told her. He told her about losing his wife, about raising Lily alone, about the months of unemployment and the mounting bills. He told her about his mother's constant disappointment. The way she measured him against a man he could never live up to. He told her about the phone calls and the guilt and the nights when he couldn't sleep. And he told her about the day he stopped to help her, about the choice he'd made, about the price he'd paid. When he finished, Victoria didn't say anything for a long time. Then she said, "You gave up everything to help me, and I didn't even know your name." Daniel shook his head. "I made a choice. That's on me." "No," Victoria said firmly. "You made a choice because you're a good person, and good people shouldn't be punished for doing the right thing." She stood and walked to her desk, pulling out a folder. "I made some calls. Harmon Engineering still has that position open, and I happen to know the CEO. He owes me a favor." Daniel's chest tightened. "What are you saying?" Victoria handed him the folder. Inside was a printed email, an invitation to interview for the same position. "I'm saying you're getting another shot," Victoria said. "If you want it?" Daniel stared at the paper, his hands trembling. "Why would you do this?" Victoria sat back down. "Because you didn't leave me on the side of the road when you had every reason to. Because you put someone else's safety ahead of your own future." Daniel didn't know what to say. "There's one condition," Victoria added. Daniel looked up. "You have to pass the interview on your own. I can open the door, but you have to walk through it." Daniel nodded slowly. "When?" "Friday, 2 days from now." Daniel looked down at the folder again. "Thank you." Victoria smiled. "Don't thank me yet. Just go in there and show them what you're capable of." Daniel left the office feeling lighter than he had in months. But by the time he got home that night, the fear had set in. What if he wasn't good enough? What if he failed again? He called his mother without thinking. "You have another interview?" she said when he told her. "At Harmon?" "Yeah. This Friday." There was a long silence. Then his mother said, "Don't get your hopes up, Daniel. You know how these things go." Daniel felt the air leave his lungs. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you've been disappointed before, and I don't want to see you fall apart again when it doesn't work out." "It might work out. It might not." His mother's voice softened, but the words still cut. "I'm just trying to protect you. You can't afford to fail again." Daniel hung up without saying goodbye. He sat on the couch, staring at the folder, and wondered if his mother was right. Maybe he wasn't good enough. But then he thought about Lily, about the way she looked at him like he could do anything, and he thought about Victoria, about the way she'd looked at him in that office, not with pity, but with hope. He opened the folder and started preparing. Friday came fast. Daniel dropped Lily off at school, put on the same tie, and drove to Harmon Engineering for the second time. This time, he was 15 minutes early. The receptionist recognized him. "Daniel Foster, I have an interview at 10. She checked her computer and nodded. "Mr. Harrison will see you shortly." Daniel sat in the waiting area, his hands folded, trying to keep his breathing steady. His phone buzzed, a text from his mother. "Good luck. But remember what I said." Daniel turned the phone off. 20 minutes later, he was sitting across from Mr. Harrison, answering questions about load-bearing calculations and thermal efficiency and project timelines. His hands didn't shake, his voice didn't waver, because he knew exactly what he was talking about. When the interview ended, Mr. Harrison shook his hand. "We'll be in touch." Daniel walked out, got into his truck, and sat there for a long time. He didn't know if he'd gotten the job. But for the first time in a long time, he felt like he'd done everything he could. And maybe that was enough. Daniel didn't hear anything for 3 days. He went back to the construction site on Monday morning, back to hauling materials and following Ray's orders. Nobody asked about the interview. It was like that entire week had been a dream. On Wednesday afternoon, his phone rang. Daniel was up on the scaffolding when he felt the vibration. He climbed down, pulled off his gloves, and answered. "Mr. Foster?" The voice was professional, clipped. This is Amanda Richards from Harmon Engineering. Mr. Harrison would like to speak with you. Can you hold?" Daniel's heart stopped. "Yeah, I can hold." There was a click, then silence. Daniel stood there, surrounded by noise and dust, holding his phone like it was the only thing keeping him upright. Then a man's voice came through. "Daniel Foster?" "Yes, sir." "This is Robert Harrison. We've reviewed your interview and your qualifications. I'll be frank with you. We don't usually give second chances. But Ms. Hayes made a compelling case. And after meeting with you, I'm inclined to agree." Daniel couldn't breathe. "We'd like to offer you the position," Mr. Harrison continued. "Senior structural engineer. Salary is $85,000 annually, full benefits, and a signing bonus of $5,000. If you're interested, we'd like you to start in 2 weeks. Daniel's legs nearly gave out. He leaned against the scaffolding. "Mr. Foster, are you still there?" "Yes," Daniel managed. "Yes, I'm here. I accept. Thank you." "Good. We'll send over the paperwork this afternoon. Welcome to Harmon Engineering." The line went dead. Daniel stood there, trying to process what had just happened. Around him, the construction site continued, hammers pounding, saws cutting, men shouting. But Daniel couldn't hear any of it. He'd done it. He'd actually done it. Ray walked over. "You good? Foster, you look like you just saw a ghost." Daniel looked up at him, and for the first time in months, he smiled. A real smile. "I got the job." Ray's expression shifted to something that looked almost like pride. "No kidding!" "No kidding." Ray clapped him on the shoulder. "Well, hell, good for you, man. When do you start?" 2 weeks, Ray nodded. "Then let's make sure you finish strong here." Daniel agreed. He worked the rest of the day in a daze. A real salary, benefits, a future. He could get Lily into a better school. He could move them out of that cramped apartment. That evening, he picked Lily up from Mrs. Patterson's house and took her to the park. She ran ahead of him and climbed onto the swings. "Push me, Daddy." Daniel pushed her, watching her fly higher and higher, her laughter cutting through the cool evening air. And for the first time in a long time, he felt like maybe things were going to be okay. After Lily went to bed, Daniel sat on the couch and stared at his phone. He knew he needed to call his mother. Part of him didn't want to. Part of him was still bracing for her to find a way to turn this into another disappointment. He called anyway. She answered on the second ring. "Daniel?" "Hi, Mom." "Well, did you hear anything?" Daniel took a breath. "I got the job." There was a long silence. Then his mother said, "You're serious?" "Yeah, I start in 2 weeks. Senior engineer, good salary, benefits." Another silence. Daniel waited. "That's good," his mother said finally. Her voice was softer than he'd heard it in a long time. "That's really good, Daniel." "Yeah, it is. I'm proud of you." The words hit him harder than he expected. He felt his throat tighten. "Thanks, Mom. I know I've been hard on you. I didn't want you to give up. I didn't want you to settle." "I know. Your father would be proud, too." They talked for a few more minutes, and for the first time in years, it didn't feel like a fight. When they hung up, Daniel sat there in the quiet of his apartment, feeling something that had been missing for a long time. Relief. The next 2 weeks passed quickly. Daniel finished at the construction site and spent his evenings preparing for the new job. He bought a few new shirts, got a haircut, and went over his old engineering textbooks. On his last day at the site, Ray pulled him aside and handed him an envelope. "From the guys. Just a little something to help you get started." Daniel opened it. Inside was $300 in cash and a card signed by everyone on the crew. "You didn't have to do this," Daniel said. Ray shrugged. "You were a good worker, and you didn't treat us like we were beneath you. That matters." Daniel shook his hand. Thank you. For everything. Ray grinned. Go build something great, Foster. Daniel's first day at Harmon Engineering felt surreal. He walked into the building in a pressed shirt and tie, carrying a new briefcase. The receptionist smiled and handed him a badge with his name already printed on it. He was led to a cubicle on the 4th floor, given a laptop and a stack of project files, and introduced to his team. They were polite, professional, and didn't ask where he'd been. It didn't matter. He was here now. By the end of the first week, Daniel had settled into a rhythm. The work was challenging, but it was the kind of challenge he'd been trained for. It felt like waking up after a long sleep. He picked Lily up from school every day at 3, helped her with her homework, and made her dinner. On Fridays, they went out for ice cream. Small things, normal things. 3 weeks into the new job, Daniel received an email from Victoria. It was short, professional. Congratulations on the new position. I knew you could do it. Daniel stared at the message for a long time. Then he typed a reply. Thank you for giving me a second chance. I won't forget it. Victoria responded an hour later. You earned it. And if you ever need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. 2 months later, Daniel signed the lease on a new apartment. It was in a better neighborhood, closer to Lily's school, with 2 bedrooms and a small balcony that overlooked a park. The day they moved in, Lily ran through the empty rooms, her footsteps echoing on the hardwood floors. She picked the smaller bedroom, the one with the window that faced the park, and declared it the best room in the world. Daniel stood in the doorway, watching her, and felt something break open inside him. Relief, pride, hope. That evening, after they'd unpacked the essentials and ordered pizza, Daniel called his mother. We moved into the new place today, he said. His mother's voice was warm. How is it? It's good, really good. Lily loves it. I'm glad, Daniel. You've worked hard for this. There was a brief silence. Then his mother said, I'd like to come see it, if that's all right. Daniel smiled. Yeah, Mom, I'd like that. The following weekend, his mother drove down. Daniel and Lily met her at the door, and she stepped inside, her eyes sweeping over the apartment. For a moment, she didn't say anything. Then she turned to Daniel, and her eyes were wet. I'm sorry, she said quietly. Daniel frowned. For what? For being so hard on you, for making you feel like you were never good enough. Her voice cracked. I was scared, Daniel. After your father died, I was so scared you'd end up struggling, that Lily would grow up without stability. I thought if I pushed you hard enough, you'd find a way to be strong. Daniel felt his chest tighten. I know, Mom, but I was wrong. You were already strong. You were already doing everything you could. And instead of supporting you, I made it harder. She wiped her eyes. I'm proud of you. I should have said that more. Daniel stepped forward and wrapped his arms around her. She held on to him, and he felt her shoulders shake. You raised me to be kind, Daniel said softly. You taught me to help people, even when it's hard. And that's what saved me. That's what brought me here. His mother pulled back and looked at him, her face streaked with tears. You're a good man, Daniel, a better man than I gave you credit for. Lily came over and hugged both of them, and the 3 of them stood there in the small living room, holding on to each other. Later that evening, after his mother had gone home and Lily was asleep, Daniel stood on the balcony and looked out at the park. His phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. How's the new place? Daniel smiled and typed back. Perfect. Thank you again for everything. Victoria's response came quickly. You did the work. I just opened the door. Daniel thought about that. Then he typed, would you like to get coffee sometime? I'd like to say thank you in person. There was a longer delay. Then Victoria replied, I'd like that. How's Saturday? On Saturday, Daniel met Victoria at a coffee shop downtown. She was already there when he arrived, sitting by the window in jeans and a sweater, looking more relaxed than he'd ever seen her. "Hey," Daniel said as he sat down. Victoria smiled. "Hey, you look good. Less stressed." "I feel less stressed." They ordered coffee, and for a while they just talked. About work, about Lily, about the strange turns life takes. "I keep thinking about that day," Victoria said eventually. "The day you stopped to help me. I was on my way to a board meeting. I was terrified. I'd just taken over the company from my father, and I had no idea what I was doing." Daniel listened. "And then my car broke down, and I thought that was it, that I'd missed my chance." She looked at him. "But then you stopped, and you didn't ask for anything. You just helped." "It was the right thing to do," Daniel said. Victoria shook her head. "Most people wouldn't have done it. But you didn't, and that told me something about who you are." "I've been thinking about starting a foundation," Victoria said. "Something that helps people who've fallen through the cracks. People like you, who have the skills and the drive, but just need someone to give them a chance." Daniel looked at her. "That's a good idea. Would you want to be involved? Not now." "But eventually." Daniel thought about it, about all the people like him, struggling in silence. "Yeah, I'd like that." Victoria smiled. "Good. Then we'll make it happen." They finished their coffee, and when they left, Daniel walked her to her car. She turned to him before getting in. "Thank you for stopping that day," she said. "You didn't just fix my car. You reminded me what kind of person I wanted to be." Daniel smiled. "You did the same for me." Victoria reached out and squeezed his hand. Then she got in her car and drove away. When Daniel walked into the apartment, Lily was sitting on the couch, watching cartoons. She looked up and grinned. "Did you have a good time, Daddy?" Daniel sat down beside her and pulled her into his lap. "Yeah, kiddo, I did." Lily snuggled against him, and they sat there together, watching the bright colors flicker across the screen. Outside, the sun was setting, casting long golden light through the windows. Daniel thought about the choices he'd made, the interview he'd missed, the woman he'd helped, the job he'd lost, the job he'd gained, the mother who'd doubted him, the daughter who'd believed in him. And he realized that everything, every struggle, every failure, every moment of doubt had led him here, to this apartment, to this life, to this quiet, perfect moment with his daughter in his arms. He'd been measured his whole life by his mother, by his circumstances, by his own fear. But in the end, the only measure that mattered was whether he'd stayed kind, whether he'd kept trying, whether he'd chosen to help, even when it cost him everything. And he had. One Saturday afternoon, 6 months after he'd started at Harmon Engineering, Daniel took Lily to the park. They sat on the swings, and she asked him a question that caught him off guard. "Daddy, why did you stop to help that lady?" Daniel looked at her, surprised. "What lady?" "The one with the broken car, the one you told me about." "How do you remember that?" Lily shrugged. "Because it made you late for your job thing. And then you were sad for a long time." Daniel pushed her gently on the swing. "I stopped because she needed help, and it was the right thing to do. Even though it made you sad. Even though." Lily thought about that. Then she said, "I'm glad you helped her." Daniel smiled. "Me too, kiddo. Because now we have a nice home, and you're happy again." Daniel felt his throat tighten. "Yeah. Now we have a nice home." Lily jumped off the swing and ran toward the slide, and Daniel watched her go, his heart full. He thought about the man he'd been 6 months ago, exhausted, broken, desperate. And he thought about the choice he'd made on that lonely road, to stop, to help, to be kind, even when it cost him everything. That choice had changed his life. not because it earned him a reward, but because it reminded him of who he was. And in the end, that was the only measure that mattered. A single moment of kindness had changed everything, not just his life, but the way his family saw him, the way he saw himself, and that was worth more than any job, any salary, any title. It was worth everything.